It is Talking Reds. Happy Wednesday, everyone, wherever you're watching in the world. It is John Gibbons. I'm joined by Craig Hannan. We are not live. Apologies for that. There was internet issues in the entire building/area. I don't know how far it goes, but we've got no internet, which is a little bit of a shame, particularly this week, because I did want to get your comments, because we are going to talk about the changes to ticketing that LFC announced yesterday. So we've all had a bit of time to digest it. There's a lot in there. We had to go to Dua Lipa in between as well, and had a great time there. But tried to look at it yesterday, had another look this morning, and we're going to sort of say, you know, what it looks like to us, a few questions sort of we've got. Like I said, I did really want to bring in your comments during this, because people will have different experiences and obviously different ideas on what they think is fair or right based on their situation. I am a season ticket holder, so there's that situation. Craig's a member, so it's but everyone's sort of in different places, and depending on your ticketing situation, you've obviously got your own priorities. So it would have been nice to bring in comments, so apologies for that, but obviously you can still comment in the section, talk about it with each other, and I'll try and log in later and go back to a couple of people if I can. But yeah, we'll go through the changes. First of all, it's split into 4 sections, or 4 or 5 sections, and the first one we'll go through sort of quite quickly, because it's more about processes, and it looks like they're trying to make it easier. Now, the reason I want to go through it quite quickly is like, we'll wait and see type thing. Do you know what I mean? Like they're saying it's going to be easier. There's Apple Pay up the Reds, things like that. They're saying it's going to be an easier process for people in the members sale. But imagine, like I said, I'm not in the members sale, but imagine people who are taking that with a bit of a pinch of salt, because they've heard that before.
Yeah, no, I liked how that it was these are the bits that you're gonna like, and then just wait for the bits at the bottom. Even the likes of the payment. If your payment's unsuccessful, then they'll give you another chance. That's good, isn't it?
Some people have
because
struggled with
cards can have, we see it with our subscriptions, like someone's card that they didn't realise has run out or expired, particularly with tickets, and sort of how people are taking time off work and are putting that in the calendar in their day to try and to get these tickets. If they're sort of let down by something like that's essentially an admin error on their part, then that they weren't aware of, then that's a good sort of a good plus point. Is that fair in terms of the plus points? Seat preference as well beforehand makes sense. All makes sense. Automated payment makes sense. That's all I have to say on the good bits.
Yeah, it just looks like you're going to be a little bit less living your life on ticketing websites if you do have to go through that process. But like I said, we shall see. The proof will be very much in the pudding on that one. But the changes that they are making are a lot about distribution, and there's various sorts of aspects to this that we'll go through, but it's long been contentious. Like, the idea, like, if you say buy a season ticket, or if you even buy an individual ticket, is it up to you to then do whatever you want with that? Obviously you're planning to attend because you're buying the ticket, but if you can't, what is it that you are able to do with that? What is it you can do with that? And that's been sort of debated a long time. But we'll come on to the European stuff where it's already sort of really contentious in terms of that and the process around buying tickets for European away games. But if you look at the obviously the majority of Liverpool games, take place at Anfield, over any other stadium, and the majority of tickets that Liverpool sell obviously take place at Anfield. So it's those main areas, and for a while you've been able to forward tickets on in a certain way, and that looks like it's going to stop. So basically, if you're not sure, in the past, a ticket's been able to forward it on to 3 times, and that's a way. It's a little bit of a way to circumnavigate the friends and family thing, because if I've got a spare ticket and Craig's mate's got one, as long as he's not got a ticket at that time, I can forward it to him and he can forward it on. You can forward it on up to 3 times. They're stopping that, so it can only be forwarded on once. So I can forward my ticket on to Craig, but then he's got to use it. If he can't, he can now send it back, which he couldn't do before. And then I think I can then send it on to someone else, but Craig can't then sort of forward it on. So they're trying to stop that, and then they're also limiting the number of people, it looks, to who you can send to. Now, this has been a little bit of a debate online, and different people have got different opinions on what it means, and so they will need to issue a bit of clarity at some point. But you can add up to 18 people. Now, is that 18 from 0? Is that 18 on top of what we've got? We're sort of not quite sure.
That'll be a big factor on it, because in theory, if you've I mean, and this is only talking as someone who has already set up an account and has added friends and family and has a list of people there that, you know, I'm likely to forward tickets on, or they're likely to forward tickets to me. But, you know, I read that initially as, well, surely they can't remove everyone that I've already built up on the list and made the connections with, that it's not starting again, that it's adding 18 on top of that each season. But, you know, it's not clear from that. I'd like to hope that's the case, but that's just because it's sort of the easiest thing for me. When you're talking about tickets, it is contentious and it's a difficult one to talk about, because you just constantly look at it through the eyes of your own experience.
Yeah.
And like, if we're all being honest with it, what works best for you. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
You know, everyone wants to get to Anfield, and everyone wants the opportunity to get to the game, and everyone wants to also get the opportunity to be able to bring a mate or help someone out if they have to, right up to the last minute.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly looking at these bits and going like, hey, what works best in terms of, you know, my experience of going to the match so far and looking ahead and knowing the challenges around tickets and getting people tickets and people wanting to getting access to the match and people having a last minute spare, because my God, people have lives outside of football, and then them looking to pass it on. You're constantly looking at it through the prism of your own experiences, aren't you?
Yeah, 100%. And at the moment, this is a frustrating change for me, because, you know, I'm able to sort out a lot of people through the processes of it at the moment, and that's a nice thing to do, because I don't like seeing empty seats in the ground, and it frustrates me if a seat's empty when I know that there's someone who'd be desperate for it. So it doesn't benefit me at all moving all these ticket rounds. I obviously don't make any money from it, and I've got my season ticket, and in fact often in the process of having to move it around, I end up sat sort of somewhere else and somewhere random, but I don't mind because I'm watching Liverpool, so it sort of doesn't really bother me. But I end up sort of sat here, there and everywhere, don't I? But the thing is, like, people will often ring me and on the day of the game, like you say, and say, oh John, I can't get down, or whatever. I've got a mate Carl who lives up in Preston, and so, like, you know, there's obviously Liverpool fans up there, but not as many as sort of down here. And sometimes, you know, he on the day with work or sort of whatever, he's not able to get down. He just rings me and says, John, will you sort this? And then within 20 minutes, I've got someone who we can pass the ticket to, sort of through me or whatever, and we moved him around. And he's pleased because someone's using the ticket, someone else has made up, and we're not going to be able to do that anymore. And that seems like a real shame. And what I always wonder with the club, and when they put these things out, and I've said this to them, it's like, why are you doing it? What problem are they trying to solve here? And because last time when Phil Dutton came in, and he's more than welcome, obviously, to sort of come in again whenever he wants to chat these things through. What he said, and you know, I believe he was genuine, was this idea of, they don't want sort of empty seats. But I think these changes are going to lead to more. Yeah. I think they're going to lead to more empty seats. And so why are they taking that risk to solve a bit of an unknown problem? I don't know what it is that they're trying to achieve by doing this. Are they basically saying, well, it's not up to you to sort out who's getting what ticket, John, it's up to us? Fair enough if that's what they're saying, but I feel like they sort of need to say that, really. I mean, not quite as directly as that to me, but is I think what they want, and I'm just you reading into it, I think what they want is you to sell the ticket back, so they can then sell it to someone, and then they're obviously more in control of who's going to the game. They're able to allocate tickets based on past games or whatever it is, credits, rather than, oh, would they know someone? If that's what they're trying to do, then that's sort of fair enough, if you like. Like, who's to say that, like, me or whoever should be deciding sort of who's going on these tickets? But then, as I say, it comes back to, well, who does that ticket belong to? If I buy a season ticket, is that mine to then do what I want with, or does it still sort of belong to Liverpool? And I'm like, I rented it for a year, if you like, and that is the question. But I think what they're trying to do here is they want to sell more of the tickets. So I think they're trying to encourage a situation where if you can't go, you just sort of sell it back to the club. But people don't trust that system, and that's the problem. And I actually think they do need to do a bit of work if that's what they want to do. And again, I'm just guessing because they've not said what they're trying to achieve with this. If that's what they're trying to do, they need to sort of build trust. So you know, in the past it was like you get your money off next year's season ticket. I know they've stopped that, but I don't think everyone realises. I think people go, do you even get the money? Do you know what I mean? What happens if the club can't sell it? Now, you know, people might get a bit nervous about that. If it just gets unsold, I'll lose the money. I'd rather, you know, get 40 quid cash off someone or whatever. And also there's a thing that I've seen and that people have said that they've sold tickets back to the club and then seen them go on a corporate.
Well, that was the thing I was about to say here, is that in the past it's been much easier on the day of a game for a member to be able to pick up any last minute tickets that have come back, that have probably been sent back to the club in the way that you've just described. I think more and more what people are finding is when they go on, it's only hospitality. But I remember seeing a tweet online, and look, it's only one person, but seeing a tweet online where they're like, I've just seen my seat, the seat that I usually sit on, my seat, do you know what I mean? The seat that this person usually sits on for, like, you know, way more above sort of face value. And so it's turning normal seats into hospitality and bolting on. And that's I suppose that's where the distrust comes from, really. It's like, you know, because when you're talking there, you're talking about, so I see you as an example, and I see so many other people around the match who, you know, are just helping people out, and it's, you know, off their own back, and it's to get people that either they know or someone, you know, their mate's mate, or just to get someone in the ground using a ticket, and it's never anything above face value. But then there'll be someone watching this who is a member who's bought the membership, who's then tried to get tickets to build up credits to go, but in doing so build up credits, so then they're able to get to go to a Man United game or an Everton game, or get to go to more games. And then they're going, well, you know, but those people are getting into the ground without building up the membership.
To jump in the queue just because they've asked the right person for the favour.
Exactly. No, they're not able to build up they're not able to build up credits. They're just getting to go in. But still, someone at the beginning, whether it's in, you know, in Ireland, in Liverpool, in Oslo, in America, wherever it is, people buy the membership at the beginning of the season in the hope that they'll get an opportunity to get to go to the game, which is really, really hard, particularly if you're starting with no credits, and B, then to try and build up and get to go as much as possible. So it's, again, this is what I mean in terms of the different perspectives, because I can see the people that get sorted last minute at the pub, and you're fucking made up to be able to get into Anfield and get the ticket, and it's face value, and it's forwarded, so the club have the name of the person, they have the, you know, they have the email address. I remember whenever this all first came in after the pandemic, and at the beginning people were a bit wary of it, but because it became, well, actually, we don't have to meet people with tickets, and now the club knows who it is in the seat. I was thinking that this feels like a really nice sort of middle ground for everyone to sit in, where... Yeah,
for the likes of Carl, who's in Preston, who's like, well, you know, if the tickets are in his house, then someone needs to go up and get them, whereas if he can just forward it on.
And then the club know who exactly it is sitting in the seat, and there's, you know, there's sort of safety measures around that we probably don't think about, that the club will have to think about. You know, so it's really difficult, but the overriding thing, and it's the thing that I noticed, and again, it's just anecdotal, but it's the thing that I noticed last season, was that you would go on in the hours before a game, and, you know, people who have either built up enough credits to be able to go on and try and get it, or if it was lower down the credits or no credits at all, you know, people would go on to try and get, and there'll be a ticket on there for hundreds, and you're like, come on, there has to be something, and you know, again, you know, look, we know Liverpool Football Club is it's a self-sustainable football club, and, you know, we signed Florian Wirtz, and they're able to do that because of the money they made and the revenue they've made and the commercial activity and where the club is and all of the work that goes in the background to ensure that. You did a brilliant show with Dave Powell, Money Talks, I listened to this morning. It's excellent in terms of understanding where Liverpool are as a business and why they're able to make the moves they are. You know, and they will say that every little counts, that everything builds towards, but it just feels like, you know, a handful of tickets every game and putting them on a couple of £100 or whatever it is, when there's members who have bought a membership who, you know, a lot of them will have bought the membership for that very reason, which is to sit on the website on the day and try and pick up tickets. Literally, people sit with it on as they come up and go bang, refresh, bang, you know, and do that.
Well, our friend Karina, like, she lives down south, and I know she's been like on the train on the way up, like just gambling on trying to get tickets, and it's like, it's a mad way to, like, that's an unbelievable, like, commitment, like, you know, to be getting on a train, you don't even know that you're going to be going. It is frustrating, because I'm looking at it and thinking, like,
it was already hard. You know, it was already difficult. Like, you know, you think of what the instances this season where I'm thinking about where there's a ticket comes spare, and you're like, someone tweeted somewhere or someone put in a group somewhere that they'd flown here and they had and they don't have a ticket, and you're thinking, right, who did? And then it's like, yeah, but you have to, have you got an account? They're like, no, and so they have to like set all of this up, and they have to, and you're like, is this gonna work? There's such there's such admin for, you know, to be able to get to the point of getting someone into Anfield to fill a seat which would otherwise have gone empty. But then as I say that, there's someone sitting here going, yeah, but I'm sad at the beginning. I'm taking half a day off work or a couple of hours off work to sit and try and get a membership tickets through a membership, and then I'm not able to, and then other people are getting. It's hard, John.
It is tough. It is a shame. It's going to be hard to sort of to genuinely help people, and there's a lot of people out there who are just sort of doing that, really, I would say, much more than there are sort of touts and making money, and the touts will always find a way, and that's the sort of the frustrating thing, is that they'll always, you know, find ways around it and stuff like that, and it's ordinary fans who aren't doing this kind of thing professionally, who are, you know, able to sort of not help someone who's you know, moved away but back for a month or whatever, or someone just here and you know, they're here for a couple of weeks and they want to sort of go and see the Reds, and there always used to be ways to eventually try and sort of help them out, and I think this is going to make it harder, and that is a little bit of a shame. We will do the European aways. This is, it might even be the most contentious area, I think, for ticketing generally, in a very small sphere. So obviously it only affects a small number of people. There's probably a wider number of people who quite like to be affected by it, but listen, European aways, the allocations tend to be small. Obviously you need a certain amount of disposable income to be able to sort of go on them and things like that. There's expense levels there, but this is one where you know, you talk about your own perspective. The current situation, or close to the current situation, suits a small number of people because they've either built the credits up themselves or know people who sort of have, and so if you've got the access to tickets, you sort of want it to stay the same. I think the current situation is a bit of a mess, to be honest with you. I think in terms of ticketing, it's the biggest area that feels like it's a mess. It feels like they've made small changes. It feels like they made small changes because they don't want to do the big ones, and then they end up in a situation that pleases no one. And so, like, I don't think the club want to be selling European away games like this. The people who are buying them, who are having to, you know, go to a hotel on the day of the game to pick up the tickets and stuff like that, are moaning. And so by I don't know, they've almost end up pleasing no one by through concessions. It's like, okay, but we won't go as far as what we want to do. We'll just sort of move here, and they've ended up in this strange space where it's a little bit of a mess, really. Whereas the people who are buying the tickets aren't happy because they have to, you know, inconvenience themselves on these trips to go to a certain location to pick up the ticket. They're like, why can't you just send it to me, sort of like the others? You know, I think the club would sell completely differently. Like, it is a bit of a mad seller situation if they could, but they obviously feel sort of under pressure to not make wholesale changes all the time. And then you've got people who are like, well, I'd love to go to a European away, same as what you said, but I can't because it is a complete closed shop. And then also you've got people who've been to every European way, and then it gets to the final and got 0 credits.
Yeah.
And listen, they sort of know what they're getting themselves in for, but I always think that's really harsh. You'll see it. We'll get to a European final, and there'll be someone who's you know, been to 5 homes, 6 aways, and credit wise, you know, they're really low and don't get a ticket for the final. Whereas the person who's bought all 6 away games and then passed them on, never any intention of going to them, like, gets a ticket to the final. And that always just seems a little bit sort of messed up to me, and I think it does to the club. But they're in this situation where, for whatever reason, they don't feel like that they can change it. What they have changed is so in the past, you could just write down, basically just tell them who was going on the ticket, and as long as you did that in advance, so you could buy the ticket. So I could buy a ticket and say, I've got the credits, I can buy the ticket, but it's Craig who's going. And as long as I give all Craig's details on there, they would be fine. And then it'd be Craig who'd have to pick up the tickets in Milan or Amsterdam or whatever it was, but he'd have to go with his passport to sort of pick that up. So that's the current situation. Now they're saying it needs to be someone on this friends and family list that may or may not be 18 people. So it's another thing where, you know, people are going to sort of to find it tricky to do what they've done in the past, and that will annoy the people who that benefited.
Yeah, this is the hardest one to talk about, really, because so, like, for background, I've done 1 European away on each of the last 2 seasons, so 1 each season, and I'm really lucky to do that. Before children before a child, I was doing pretty much 70% of them, and the way I was getting tickets was through different people I knew that were able to send it on to me, and as you described, you would go and you would pick it up. Now I understand that when I'm looking at this again through my perspective of, oh fucking hell, like this makes everything so much harder because, you know, you've got a list of 18 people there, but then you know, I'm thinking about the ways in which you end up getting European aways, and you know, will those people be in my my list of 18 people? But again, I'm thinking about this as from my perspective, and so this is the hardest one. I felt as if they'd got it to a stage where, again, I thought it sort of worked for everyone to a certain extent, whereby, again, is this just my perspective, whereby they know who's on the ticket, they know who's travelling before they're travelling, the person literally has to turn up, which is a contentious thing in itself, because if you think about the money that's spent to go to these places, the time off spent from work, you then have to make sure that you go to a hotel, which is usually not near where you're going to be going afterwards. You've only got a certain amount of time in this city, and then you've got a football match later on. You have to go and you have to queue and all of this, and it's not perfect, but I thought that it was one that worked because it meant that they knew who was on the ticket. They knew before we were going over, and but then there is the credits and how that works in terms of a European final at the end of it, and how it doesn't attribute to that. I'm just looking at this thing and I don't know how I'm going to go to a European away, but that's my perspective. People will be watching this and going, well, I fucking never got to go to a European away. So this entire thing needs to change, because, you know, I don't think any fan is more deserving than any other fan. Like, I hate that word deserving within, particularly around tickets and Liverpool, because, you know, I think everyone should get the experience the opportunity to experience these things. But then it's also really difficult because there's people that I know that travel to every single game and are lucky enough to do so, but they spend all their money, their livelihood is going to Liverpool and watching these games. So it's making it harder for them. And it's making it harder for them because there's a number of them that won't have been in this like closed group of people that have relied on the connections and the relationships and their mates who maybe are, and so they've been able to send them on. And you know, I think of like I was in the away end at Eindhoven, and it was the best away end of the season, barring after we'd become champions. It was fucking brilliant. Everyone I was with was with on the basis that the tickets had been forwarded to them. It wasn't through, you know.
Well, if you see a 19-year-old lad or girl at a European away, they've not built it. It's impossible for them to have built up any credit, so they're you know, sort of getting forwarded. But if you might say, well, we'll open it up so they can buy it, but they might not get them. You know what I mean? Like, depending on what the sort of criteria is, and so they're there because of
what would you're talking about the like what the club might want to do. What do you think the club would want to do?
I think they want to sell to people who intend to go to the game. So I think what they want to do, and so I think it's the intention. It's their intention for all tickets, I think, for people to only buy them if you yourself want to go, and if you can't go, then A, you should be buying the ticket, and B, if something happens, then I think they want you to sell it back to the club so they can then sell it again. I think they want to be deciding the fairest and best way who sort of gets the tickets. The problem is that people don't trust them, and they don't trust them in a variety of ways. They trust themselves to sort it. You know, you see it all the times. Oh, you know, good wedding, he's sorting and stuff like that. It's like people have got their own credit system sort of in their head, really, in the old idea of who deserves a ticket, and that might be, oh, he's been everywhere this season, let's get him a ticket, or it might be, listen, there's this person, you know, who's, you know, flown all the way from Australia, Istanbul, wherever it might be, you know, India, sort of here for the first game. We met him in a pub, he signed with someone, get him a ticket. You know, there's no perfect kind of thing, but like people do like to trust themselves more to kind of like sort this out. I think of what it comes down to. Whereas the club, like, it's our ground, they're our tickets, we want to sell them sort of how they want. Where I do feel like that there is a bit of a broken thing is with the European aways, because I think with a season ticket, you buy a season ticket thinking I'm going to go to the game, and I might not go to every one, and then it's up to me to decide who wants to go to them. I can sort of get that. I think with European aways, there'll be people who've bought every European away for the last 5 years and with never any intention of going to any of the games.
Apart from the final.
Yeah, apart from the final. And they're just getting those tickets because they got on the ladder sort of years and years ago, and then it's just the easiest thing in the world to sell them. You just need a name. Put in a WhatsApp group. Anyone want to go to Eindhoven? Someone someone like you goes, yeah, I'll go sound. Okay, fill in this form. Yeah, there we go. Boom, I've got my credits. If we get to a final, I'm going. And that does seem a bit. I can understand fair enough doing it once, fair enough doing it like a couple of times, but like this is years and years and years of people who were just sitting at home, with no intention of going to any of these games, but quite happy to like hoover up like hundreds of these tickets between the hundreds of people who were doing it. And I think it's hard to justify that, and it's hard to make an argument for it beyond, well, it suits me. and so that's the sort of the situation.
But then there's this is where it's so nuanced as well, because there will be situations where that is a dad, and then the dad has built up the credits and gone to the games, and then now he's gone, well, actually, do you know what, I'm going to let my son go, and then so he's been transferred. But then their data will tell them that. They'll be able to see, like, has this person been sending it to lots of different people over years? Has this person gone to any of them, and has he just gone to the final? Has he even gone to the final? Or has it been someone that has has transferred it down to essentially unofficially their son or their daughter or their brother or someone to allow them to go. When you're talking again, and I'll keep saying this, like, people will be listening, and at different times when we say something, they'll want to argue with it because it's because they have a different experience and different perspective, and that's where it's really, really difficult. Like, I can only speak for myself, and I'm looking at this and thinking, well, if this was in during the Jurgen years, like, I wouldn't have been at any of the games that I was at. But again, there's loads of nuance around that. There maybe will be people that should have got more opportunities to go during that time. It's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah, it's tricky, and as ever, we'll have to sort of see how these things play out, and we've got a few questions at the moment as well. And if anyone from the Liverpool Football Club wants to come on and talk about them, talk about why they're making the changes, and answer some of those things that aren't quite clear to us, which might be because we're thick, I don't know, but you can tell us that. The door is always open, the kettle's always on, and you know where we are if anyone wants to come on. We're meant to do tight here. Should we do transfers? There's going to be loads of transfer stuff on the app today and tomorrow, so I'm doing talking transfers with Paul Gorst in about half an hour, so that is exciting. So I'm going to be speaking to Gorsty about all the latest links and stuff like that. We'll have a gutter out tomorrow for audio and video subscribers, and when Kerkez finally gets announced, because he's dragging, well, he's not dragging his heels, he's desperate. Someone's dragging the wheels somewhere. When he gets announced, there'll be reaction sort of shows to that.
Do you know what, right? This is a couple of weeks ago, it was a Bournemouth fan, got in touch with us. I think he does one of the Bournemouth podcasts, and he DM'd us and he said that there's a thing with Bournemouth's finances where he thinks they might wait until July to announce this and do this because they want the money in next year's financials rather than the previous. Now, that feels like they could do that anyway, couldn't they? But now we're getting close to it, given the fact that everyone for honestly months has known that Kerkez is going to sign for Liverpool. The most exciting thing that come out over the past, and it maybe isn't that exciting, is have you seen the Isak thing?
Well, I was going to go on to talk about
Sorry.
that. Yeah. No, it's fine.
I just got like, I was like, forget that left back Biff that's defo signing for us.
It does look like it's sort of like gathering a bit of momentum, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. That piece, it read like, I saw Blundell say it read like a white flag, and I wouldn't go quite as far as that, but like with anything like that, it's a piece in the Times basically, and it's them talking about the Liverpool and Barcelona, they've got fucking and Arsenal. Why would you go to those over the Reds? These three teams are circling, and that Newcastle are going to have to offer Isak like this bumper deal, and they're not afraid to. But the interesting line in it was around PSR, and that they will sort of be held to that. And so I was reading that and thinking, like, with anything like that, why has that come out, and who's it come out through? Because it's come out through the Newcastle journalists. Yeah. So is this Newcastle sort of putting this out? PR teams, I would imagine, and this is just me guessing, but we'll have a plan around things like this in terms of, every team wants their team to come out of the PR battle in the best possible way, whether it's Newcastle saying, like, we couldn't keep him, and, they force. How many times do you hear of a player forcing a leave, and then, like, afterwards when they're older, like, oh, fuck, they sold me. Yeah. There's always sort of two sides to the story, but I just think it's a very interesting time for that to come out. What's your thoughts on it?
It is interesting, isn't it? Because, like you say, it does sort of feel like it's the club starting to tell the story of, oh, well, what were we supposed to do? Now, he's got 3 years left on his contract, and so this
150 million, by the way, that's too much.
Yeah, it is too much, I think. But, you know, he's a fantastic player and a very unique player in a way. But I think it feels like the start of, like you said, the club telling the story of well, what we were supposed to do. Our hand was sort of forced, but that might not necessarily even be this summer. That this might be sort of a long game for next summer, because he's got 3 years left on his deal, so they don't have to sell. But I feel like, you know, this news of, oh, they're going to sort of offer him a big contract, like that won't come from Isaac's people, like, because they're like, oh, are they? Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, where is it? And so nice. I think it's sort of the club, it feels to me, putting that out. So listen, if he accepts the contract, then brilliant, they're absolutely made up, because they get to keep the player. But if he rejects it, they're able to say, well, you know, tell the story through that. Listen, he's had his head turned, he wants to sort of move on, and then it's almost like, well, what do we do in this situation? Do you keep a player who's running his contract down, who's maybe sort of going to be unhappy, or do you cash in when he's at his sort of highest value? And it feels to me like the start of that story. And that's not to say that he won't just sign this new contract. I don't think he will, personally, but it's possible that they put a number in front of him and he likes it that much there that he just goes, yeah, go for it. But I think it feels to me like he's sort of starting to look around at what else is there, and Newcastle are starting to manage, like you say, that the PR war of, well, the fans can't moan at us for this, because, well, what would you do?
Yeah, instinctively, I think he stays for another season. But there is that sort of 5-10%, the noises that you're hearing, and just the general noises around Liverpool, around, like, you know, the money that they have to spend. I instinctively, again, I think Liverpool believe that the value's at the top end of the market. We've seen that with Wirtz. I think that they believe, given the fact that they're signed on PSR and a lot of clubs aren't, you know, and given the fact that they didn't spend anything last year, now they're Premier League champions, I think that they feel like this is the time to kick on and push on. And so what I think is, if you look at Liverpool's strategy over the number of years has been, when they see a signing who's potentially transformative, they go for it. If they can't get that signing, then they're happy to hold off rather than going to the bracket of player below. Usually they hold off. Van Dijk, you know, is the sort of key one. I think that's what they might do in terms of either Isak or Alvarez. I think they'll look and go, right, one of these two are the absolute belters. These are the dream world, and we think we can get them. You know, whether it's this season and there's that like slim hope, or
just starting the process for getting him next season. We're top of the queue
for next season. Exactly. I think that when Newcastle get qualified for the Champions League, I think Liverpool were probably thinking, shit, we could have done without that, because now Newcastle have a story to tell Isak, and one of the stories might be, you know, sign a new contract and everyone goes, yes, he's staying, but actually the contract's a bit Luis Suarez contract, you know, where it's one of those where he goes, you know, big contract, big bumper wages, probably not an extension in terms of the amount of time on it, or maybe there's an extra one, but there's like a little release clause for a particular team, or there's a gentleman's agreement that, yeah, at the end of the season, you know, we'll let you move to Liverpool. Just give us, it's the old give us one more season sort of thing. Yeah. And that might be the one. And if that is, then Liverpool play the long game on it. I honestly believe that. I don't think Liverpool are going to go for, and this is based on nothing, like an Ekate or someone like that at 80-70 million, because we know that FSG are risk averse. We know that as a football club, they only sign the players that they're absolutely sure of, because 52% of transfers don't, are only 52% of transfers are successful. So I think we do get Isak. I just don't know if it's this season or whether it's next.
Yeah, no, I think. Yeah, I mean, it's exciting.
Which is a big statement. It might not be true. It's just as a fan I'm talking about that. Or maybe it's not an Isak, but it's Alvarez. It's like one of the two, as an example. Whatever sort of 2 or 3 players Liverpool go, nah, these are the top tier, and we're shopping in the top tier now, and we want to take Liverpool to next level. Like, you know, there's no point in selling Darwin Núñez for the money they're selling Darwin Núñez, and then signing a player that's sort of a bit like Darwin Núñez in terms of his output. So we'll see.
We shall see. It's exciting. Though, is it? As I said, loads more of this on the app. So we are transfer heavy at the moment, as you can imagine, with no games going on. So if you're into that sort of thing, and I know most of you are, even the ones who pretend Gutman's got your number, don't worry. Yeah, there's absolutely loads there from. So looking forward to seeing Ghosty in half an hour or so. That'll be available for Tour Player subscribers, either on YouTube or on the app. And also tomorrow, I'm getting deep and dirty in the gutter, which really looking forward to as well. So there'll be loads of more stuff on there, and they'll announce Kerkez at some point, and we'll be talking about that. But loads of reasons to subscribe to the Anfield Wrap. Do watch Money Talks, that you can watch that for free on YouTube. So it's great. You'll be watching this, flick over to that and watch that. And the Alisson doc is really good as well by Liverpool, so fair play to them on that. Anything else?
No, up the Reds.
Up the Reds.